Alright, here we are in our final match. Let's go ahead and take the play. Hopefully we dealt a good hand here. Doesn't look too bad. We got a Declaration in Stone and an Immolating Glare to hold off early aggression, and a Pull from Tomorrow to restock our hand. Judging by our opponent's choice of avatar here, their icon, perhaps they're on a more control-y shell, but we'll see. Ooh, okay, well, zombies. Declaration in Stone is very good to have. Against a Dread Wanderer, we could certainly just Declaration in Stone now, get it out of the way. Might prefer to have that for something like a Scrap Heap Scrounger, but I think we just want to use our mana. Our opponent has to choose between using the Clue token or deploying more threats, and that just buys us more time. So I think that with the Pull from or Immolating Glare and our opponent just taking off their entire turn 2, it seems, we'll be in an ample position to do that. Next turn, whatever they do, we can cast out, since we won't be under much aggression this turn. Turn after that, maybe Pull from Tomorrow for a couple. Ooh, what is going on here? Opponent's still with nothing on turn 3. That's curious. Alright, well, if they're content to play land and go, I'd say we are as well. Mimic, not that threatening. We don't really need to cast it out. I'll just strike it down with a Glare or something. This turn we'll be able to hold up a Disallow as well. I think we're going to probably go for Pull from Tomorrow next turn, so keeping the board as clear as possible. Our opponent has like a Liliana's Mastery or something. We could just easily deal with it. Diregraph Colossus, without a Fumigate in hand, we really do want to deal with it. Otherwise, our opponent could maybe chain 1 or 2 creatures together, and yeah, like a Relentless Dead, for instance, and wouldn't be able to deal with the follow-up. So I think we are going to take care of the Mimic here. The Relentless Dead probably just cast out at a later date, but for now, let's just keep the board clear. There's really not a whole lot our opponent has done. And even if they have something like a Transgress the Mind, which I don't think they typically play main deck, but if this was game 2 or 3, then Pull from Tomorrow is just such a nice spell in that it dodges Transgress the Mind. You can just let it resolve. We could, in this situation, cast out their creature, leaving them with no targets, and that would be good. Opponent just playing I apologize for that, everyone. Here we are back again. Opponent playing a Lord of the Accursed. As I was saying before, I don't think we're under that much pressure, really. Just going to restock our hand. Pull from Tomorrow here, and cast out for the Relentless Dead, and our opponent's just left with a 2/3. So really nothing to be concerned with just yet. Alternatively, we could cast out the Dead now and cycle the farmland, but I think we're just going to draw 4 cards and start to put the brakes on this game. Alright, Bruna is there. It's quite difficult for our opponent to deal with that, actually. They're probably holding at least 1 Grasp of Darkness in their hand. We could easily just repel that later. I think in this case, we can probably just ditch the 1 land. Rather have the Cycler. We're probably going to draw a land this turn anyway. Just got a feeling. Alright, perhaps not. That's an answer to the Lord of the Accursed, however. I'm actually going to play the farmland, I think, between the Bruna and Protection counterspell backup, that we just have to deal with our opponent's threats and find another land or 2, and we'll be able to shrug off whatever our opponent's got coming for us. So another Lord of the Accursed. We can let that go and just snipe both of our opponent's creatures here. The 5/5 needs to die, so even if our opponent could grasp of Darkness, they're on the Relentless Dead. Because they have the Lord of the Accursed, it won't die. So let's go ahead and throw that out before we strike down this Lord of the Accursed. Our opponent can't cast a Liliana's Mastery or anything we'd want to hold up Negate for, so I think we're okay to tap out. Probably deploy our 7-drop in a moment. Still at a healthy life total. What could this be? Dark Salvation for just the 1 zombie. Alright. So what are we at? 2, 4, 6. One more land, and we will be able to play Bruna and hold up Negate. I think that will likely be the play. So, do we wait one more turn before firing this off? I don't think so. Even if our opponent has a grasp in hand, it's not nearly enough to deal with Bruna. So let's just actually fire her off now. If our opponent attacks into her, that could be a concern, but even with another Dark Salvation, they could at best create 3 zombies, give us -1/-1 for each zombie. That's still not enough, so yeah, just a Crypt Breaker. Our opponent will be able to draw cards once again, but we've got a 4-turn clock on board. That will be tough for them to deal with. And they're just going to go right ahead and start drawing. Another Crypt Breaker, okay. Anticipate into a Gisela, maybe? That'd be something. Just a Kefnet, I think, to draw cards with. Censor, cycling, I think Kefnet's just better, even though we can't use the activation quite yet. That puts our opponent on a somewhat faster clock if we must take a turn or two just to pull lands back to hand. So even if they're drawing cards, it's not going to be enough to save them, I think. 2 cards in hand, maybe 3 if they use a Crypt Breaker activation. Crypt Breaker number 3, alright. Not too concerned about that. I think our opponent's last card is just something useless, like a Grasp of Darkness, perhaps, or a Swamp. In this case, they're just making more zombies to have things to tap. That's just fine. Opponent can use the Lord of the Accursed ability to give them Menace, which is a little threatening, but honestly not that bad. No reason to deal with the Wanderer, they can just bring it back. Gisela would be very nice here, but not necessary. Let's use our Kefnet here, just in case we decide to pull back the farmland. Alright, another Negate. And I don't think we need to go on the offense just yet. Next turn we can if we desire, so I won't use the ability just yet. That'll bring us up to 5 cards next turn if we don't play this land. So we can kill our opponent next turn by attacking with both. There's no way we can die here, I don't think. 3, 6, 9... 15, 17 at most. They'd have to actually tap down the Lord of the Accursed in order to even get in there with Menace, and we could still block at least 1. We could even disallow the Menace ability. So I don't think our opponent's going to kill us out of nowhere, and we've got a counter spell for most others. I think we can afford... Our opponent's probably going to swing with everything here. So we can just play our land to have Disallow and a Negate if they happen to draw a sequence of removal spells. I could play my land, and then we go for the kill next turn by using Kefnet's ability twice. I don't think we get punished for playing a land there. Alright, Metallic Mimic doesn't actually do anything on the field currently. Only creatures that enter the battlefield, so no need to deal with that. If that gave counters to everything, that might be a concern. But our opponent's probably just going to use Crypt Breaker ability, maybe looking for a removal spell, giving everything Menace here, meaning we can't block once more, just to make sure the math is right. That's 2, 4, 6, 9, 12, 15. That's still not lethal, and we can kill them next turn by pulling back 2 cards to our hand, or drawing twice with Kefnet. So I don't think we really need to bother countering that ability. Opponent has no on-board tricks to worry about, no blocks. I think we win next turn with 1 life. And even a Fumigate if we needed it. But why don't we just draw some cards? I will not make the same mistake as I did before by attacking when we've gone up to 7 lands, or 7 cards in hand. No need to use that ability. Just go straight to combat and attack for the game. Alright, that'll do it. Sometimes just got to be a little more certain. Always take your time. If there's any lesson to impart from our last game, it's always take your time, survey the battlefield before going with your plan. So, against zombies, what do we want to bring in? I think Summary Dismissal is better than a Disallow, just because of the exile clause. Ceremonious Rejection hits Scrap Heap Scrounger and the Metallic Mimic, but it's really not that great against Scrounger. They can still get it back, and it's not really worth the card in our hand, I think. Could be better served with others. So let's take a Fumigate, maybe a couple of creatures that can hold off early zombie aggression, and Commit to Memory, perhaps. There's not much else we really want here. Things that we don't need. Do like most of these, actually, but I think we could do without Kefnet and a couple of Disallows, maybe. The Negates are good against Liliana's Mastery and the odd removal spell that our opponent might not even keep in their deck going into game 2. They only saw Bruna, and I mean, of course, it does hit Gisela and the Lancers and can be a blowout in combat if we block with something else, but I don't see our opponent leaving in many of those. They're probably taking them out first for all the Transgress the Minds and discard effects that they're bringing in. What can we deal without? I think we can shed a couple of these Disallows and maybe a single Forsake. I do actually like the Forsakes. Same as the Ceremonious Rejection, and it even hits Liliana's Mastery if we absolutely have to shrink all of our opponent's creatures down. I think we can do without the Negates and perhaps the Commit to Memory. I don't think we really need that. I do like the pull from Tomorrow's, as I was saying, in that it dodges a Transgress the Mind. If we need to restock our hand, we can always do that later. This is far from a great hand. It's normally good against an aggressive deck, but if you just open a 1-drop into turn 2, Transgress the Mind, take your Fumigate, we're kind of left with nothing. So I think I actually do have to mulligan, unfortunately, into an all creature hand almost. No lands, that won't do. To a no lander once again. I think we have to mulligan. Really regretting that now. Okay. Well, I guess we can do without that. We're just looking for lands, really, to get to Fumigate. Probably not winning this game, but I don't know if we were winning either way if we'd kept that Fumigate 6-lander. We'll see how generous our deck feels, though. Like the one Disallow in our deck. Oh, and our opponent doesn't even have the Transgress, apparently, unless they're just waiting. Think that they can afford another turn or two. Okay. Well, I really wish I'd kept that first hand. We at least have a Disallow, and if we can rattle off 2 more lands off the top, then we'll be in range of Fumigate and stabilizing behind a tide of Lancers here. So 2 untapped lands wouldn't be too bad. I think I will actually dispatch the dead here. It's one of the things that a Fumigate wouldn't be very useful against, or even the Lancers. I don't know that it's going to make a difference, but I think it's worth doing. Alright, we do need to find lands, so we'll do what we can. If our opponent doesn't have the Transgress, and we're able to Fumigate next turn, cleaning up maybe another 1 or 2 creatures like a Diagraph Colossus, we might actually be in this game. Lancers, the first one would probably be for a Linvala, and the second for like a Bruna or Gisela, depending on how many lands we draw. Land. Okay. Well, don't call it a comeback yet. Opponent's still got 4 spells in hand, presumably, or they'd be playing out their lands. So just a Metallic Mimic and then a 1-drop maybe? No, not even that. Okay. I think I'm going to find Linvala just to gain some life. I know we can't quite cast her yet, but we already have a Gisela and another Lancers to find like a Bruna or something if we need it. So I think I definitely want the Linvala here. Opponent's probably just going to grasp or somehow deal with our Lancers and hit us down to 6. And we're back. Opponent with a Grasp of Darkness, having resumed the game. So, as we expected, dealt easily with our creature. But if they play like a 1-drop here, and then we find an untapped land, we can play Linvala, get both the life gain and the angel. I think that we'll be in a commanding position. But we'll see what our opponent has to say about it. Really do want the land. I don't think a Gisela alone will be enough. Okay. Unfortunately, it comes untapped, but I think that we're still able to play the Gisela. And I don't see our opponent killing us next turn. So if they can somehow deal with Gisela next turn, we will be able to play Linvala and hopefully stabilize behind that. If they can't deal with Gisela, we'll be on our way to winning that way. Opponent with their own Westvale Abbey, of course. And if Gisela does meet an untimely end, then with Thalia's Lancers, we'd be able to find up a Bruna and get Brazella into play. And I think that will be the end of it. So our opponent does not seem to have a removal spell for Gisela. If they play one more creature, which it looks like they may, or not, okay. Either way, we will get credit for Linvala getting an angel into play as well, which our opponent does know about. I did see. But unfortunately, now they have a return in the grave. They can use that next turn to exile Gisela, which means no bringing her back with Bruna, unfortunately. But there are worse things. Definitely going to play this now, though. Get both a 3/3 and 5 life, along with our 5/5 flyer. Opponent only has 2, now 3 cards in hand. And we have a removal spell even. We can also attack and use all 3 escalations here. Untap both of our blockers if our opponent's not expecting it. Okay, they do get bigger, but still not big enough to punch through us. These 4/4 tokens, however, could be a bit of a problem. Okay, Declaration of Stone. We're drawing quite well here. I think I just want to play the Lancers and find a Bruna. That would kind of force our opponent into playing into their return rather to dealing with Gisela. Otherwise, I suspect next turn we'll have a Brazella in play and quickly win the game, I think. So I think what they're going to do is they'll return Gisela, get another zombie token, which next turn we can Declaration in Stone. We'll have a 4/4 in play to block with, as well as our angels here, and with the Bruna in hand, assuming we find our 7th mana source, we'll be able to just bring back the other Thalia's Lancers, which will give us the other Gisela. So I think in a roundabout way we will do okay here. Still not going to attack. We're not quite at the position yet where we can do that. I think that our opponent with 4 mana though is going to return Gisela. So unless they first transgress the mind, they always have to respect the potential Bruna into Brazella play. So still no attacks, unfortunately. I'll trade our Angel for a Crypt Breaker or a Mimic happily. And we've got things to hold off the other zombies for now until we Declaration them next turn. Okay, yeah, so our opponent is getting rid of Gisela as we expected. They get another zombie token, which will just be declared. They do get to draw a card off of Crypt Breaker, most likely, though. Can't imagine they attack into what we have. Okay. Alternatively, we could just attack with what we have and use the Blessed Alliance play this turn. Sacking a creature, gaining 4, that's basically dealing with 2 zombie tokens at once, and then blocking the rest. I think I want to goad our opponent into attacking with this Crypt Breaker, because it's going to be a problem to deal with in the long run. I don't want to use a Declaration in Stone on it. I'd rather save it for the zombie tokens. So I think we're going to put some pressure on our opponent and just attack with the 2 for now. And surprise our opponent. Maybe. They haven't seen a Blessed Alliance yet. It is a pretty common card though, so we'll see if they play around it and respect it at all. This isn't the most nonsensical attack. Could lead our opponent to believe we're just trying to race them and maybe wipe the board even. I don't know what they might be thinking. But they're probably just going to either draw a card or spit out another zombie this turn. We'll see what happens. If all they can do is kill the Lancers, we'd still have 2 blockers. They'd sack a creature, we'd gain 4, and be able to block with the 2. So we'll see what they got. Now they can start using the Westvale Abbey as well. That is worth considering, that they can always just sacrifice and get an Ormondal. So unfortunately we didn't find that 7th land in time. They're going to now take our Bruna, and they know about the 2 Blessed Alliances. So there's not a lot that we can do about it. But we're at least not dead this turn. Alternatively, I guess we could have earlier used the 2nd Lancers to get another Linvala, but I didn't really want to cast her when we already have one on the board. Due to the legend rule. Could have found another Gisela. Ooh, okay, another Mastery. Well, now is definitely the time to pull the trigger on the Declaration in Stone. This is going to be painful, but I don't think we're dead yet. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of 5/5s though. Does our opponent attack into it? They do. Alright, so we'll see what happens here. Going to escalate all 3. We gain 4, untap 2, sack. This hasn't really changed much. And we're going to soon wipe the board, so I think we might actually be in okay shape here. Our Lancers not being able to block a zombie is unfortunate though. They'll probably sacrifice one of them. Or maybe the Mimic, actually, I don't know. I think it makes sense for them to sacrifice the Mimic. Yeah, they do. Because we would just block with the Angel token. So we can't kill our opponent, can we? With 5, 9, 12. We could kill them if we survive this attack. We could, for free, eat a Crypt Breaker, and then we would take 15. So unfortunately, we can't quite do that, but we're very close. So what we can do, though, is kill that, and maybe Chump Block. That would leave us with 9 power in play. They have no board once we Declaration Stone them. They only have Westvale Abbey tokens. Taking 10 down to 13, there's really no difference between these two, but basically a flyer versus a first striker. In that case, actually, I think I would rather have the flyer. It doesn't shorten the clock whatsoever. So yeah, let's actually do that. Just having an evasive flyer is better against like our opponent top decking a Crypt Breaker or using their Westvale Abbey to spit out tokens. It holds back our Lancers long enough. Alright. So now, definitely dealing with all of that. Declaration Stone just so strong against zombies. And I think we're actually on our way to winning when we were mulliganing to 4. Thankfully our opponent didn't have the Transgress the Mind earlier. But dealing with all the zombies, we've got 8 power, that brings them down to 3. We've got another Blessed Alliance for if there was a hasty threat, which I don't think there is. And our opponent will be dead to either of our creatures. There's nothing we really need to censor for. It's not going to do anything, but I think we'll win. Somehow we prevail despite mulling to 4. So that's an undefeated deck right there. We played a pretty representative field, so I think we're ready for maybe a couple of minor changes, maybe a few tweaks here or there, and then on to the competitive leagues. So stay tuned for that, everyone. Thanks for watching, as always.